Actually, I was about to finalize the Delta crash at Toronto, but came the NTSB preliminary report, which was briefed on 13th of March. I had to do a bit of work on the things which were presented, so here we go. This was a graph which was shown in the briefing and is also included in the report, and this is based on the Puppy glide path approach to the runway 33, and the route 4 or the route 4 is shown in gray area, indicating there was only 75 feet clearance from the aircraft approaching to land. Now let's go back to a step earlier than that. This is the route 4 indicates that the pilots would fly via East Bank or via East Bank. So as a pilot, I would understand that I am supposed to hug the Eastern Bank closely, 100 feet, 200 feet at best. At night, 300 feet, but nothing more than that. So as a pilot, I'm very clear. But still, if you go into the specific meanings of the via, which is given in Collins dictionary, it says by a route passing through, along, the word is along, or over or by way of. So let's see at the word along. The Cambridge dictionary explains the word along means in the same direction as or beside. So it's right next to it. It's right beside. Or it says in a line next to something which is long. So what does it mean? The examples would make it very clear. It says cars were parked all along the road, and we know precisely how far the cars are along the road when they are parked. They are not on the road, but they're right next to it. So this is what it means if we are supposed to fly via East Bank. The example is this is an US Air Force helicopter which is crossing the route 4, and you can see how close it is, and it could be barely 100 feet or a bit more. And this is the same day when the crash took place. But with all this, still till today there is no lateral limits defined from the riverbank. I think it would be a good idea, which was as suggested by the NTSB, that there should be some lateral limits given to the pilots as well, so that the controllers on the radar can check the helicopter if it is outside that limit. I now bring your attention to the altitudes actually flown versus the graph which was presented by the NTSB chairman. With due respect, it is not the purpose to kind of challenge, but just to present the actual altitudes flown for this runway 33. And there are two dots there. One dot, the black dot, is for the flight on the day of the crash, and the white dots are those which were flown a month earlier for runway 33. All of them were higher than 450 feet. So if I were to take the clearance, I would take it from 450 feet actual from the route, so that would be much more than what is being projected here on this graph. So here you can see on the top is the minimum actually flown by the civil planes over the right bank, and this line shows the limit for the helicopters. So the clearance comes out to be 200 feet to 250 feet in the beginning of the approach. So that's what I suggest the NTSB to have a relook at it based on the actual positions of the aircraft. Another thing to note, if you put the positions of the aircraft or the altitude of the aircraft over the position of the crash, you'll find that the ill-fated aircraft flight was the lowest again as compared to the other aircraft on the flown the same day, just a few hours earlier, and a month earlier. Also to note is this aircraft was at 450 feet over the right bank and then drops to the collision point at 300 feet, which is 150 feet lost in about 1,000 feet, which is quite a high rate of descent. To my calculation, rough calculation comes out to be about 1,300 feet in this patch. So the idea is that yes, there was an onus on the helicopter pilot, but also you have to see as to something was going wrong or something was happening in the cockpit where they were on the lower side of the glide path, which was perfectly fine. I'm not blaming them, but they had to descend a lot, and they were a bit lower than all the other aircraft. Now comes to the very important discussion. I think the lateral separation rule between the IFR flight and the special VFR flight does not figure out anywhere. This, I think, is the main omission which needs to be considered. What it means is, this is the slide which I presented in my previous vlog on my channel, and this was the 8th evidence that I produced. This is the sectional chart for the DCA where it categorically says no special VFR flight. And the NVG, which is a visual aid when we fly, it actually is assisting my instrument flying. So I'm looking out on the NVGs, but I'm also looking down below the NVG on the instrument panel. So basically, I'm flying IFR while putting on NVG because NVG is quite restricted in its field of view. So technically, with NVG on, PAT-25 remained an IFR flight, essentially, and must have been under total control of the ATC, which would have given them vectors to clear the CRJ if they were considered as IFR flight. Another important thing with the same evidence that I brought out is that we haven't talked about the FAA rule which was binding on PAT-25. It is rule 7-5-3 or article you can say. It says that the special VFR helicopters are to maintain visual reference to the surface, one, and adhere to, now this is an instruction, and adhere to the following aircraft separation minima. It says between an SVR, which is special VFR helicopter, and an arriving or departing IFR aircraft, which the CRJ was, it was supposed to be at least half a mile from the aircraft. The helicopter was supposed to be half a mile from the CRJ. This was binding on the pilot, and that should have been very well understood by both by the ATC as well as the helicopter pilot. In addition, we have this is basic airmanship for all of us, that whenever we are flying VFR or a special VFR, the responsibility to avoid collision is totally of the VFR captain, and there's a principle given: see and avoid. In such airspaces, see and avoid. But perhaps the captain of PAT-25 instructor was busy giving some kind of simulated emergency to the student for the annual check. But even in that case, he should have been the safety number and acted on principle that aviate, navigate, and then communicate. So all along, they were not doing aviation and as well as the navigation. So these are my views, my personal views, and subject to your discussion or your own thinking. I'd like to thank you all for being with me on this channel, and let's help save lives wherever they are. Thank you very much.